Welcome to a beautiful spring day in Sweden on Borloka in the Vishva cosmos. And well, if that doesn't mean anything to you, that's what we're going to teach you about here, because this is about the Puranic cosmos. Now, you may have seen the previous presentation I made, the previous video here, when I was just giving a very, very, how to say, intense crash course in 1 hour of this whole channel basically was going to come up here. And well, if you haven't seen it, I recommend that you look at it. What I thought I would do, because even when writing this book, I'm faced with that kind of challenge. How to explain these things? First of all, I have to understand them myself, but even if I don't, I'm basically quoting experts and scriptures and so on. So it's quite an adventure for me, and part of that adventure is and has been to realize one thing, and it is how conditioned I was, and I dare saying that many of us are, with this underlying Western materialist, physicalist worldview, which is of course dominating Western science. So when we speak about science here, it's like we bring in, it's a package deal, you could say. We bring in that worldview there somewhere that, for instance, when we're talking about cosmology, because that's what we're talking about here, then some think that it's just about physical cosmology, about planets and galaxies and whatever places in space here, and just like astronomy almost. And then some people, they are of course not interested in that. I'm not very interested in that. I used to be when I was a kid, actually. But then a friend of mine came the other day and said, what, because I asked him what he thought about this presentation, and he said, well, you know, to be honest, something like, why is this interesting? Why is this important at all? And I'm not interested in these kind of things. So he still thought that, yes, you're talking cosmology here, so then you're talking about space and astronomy and planets and all of that. And it kind of drives me nuts sometimes, as I told him, because that's exactly what I'm challenging here, that notion. So what I decided to do here now was to simply go through that presentation step by step, and my book step by step, just take it very easy. And how many episodes this will end up with, that doesn't matter, because I got my chance here to really just explain it with all the time that is required. This is really, really nice. And I've got some nice tools here. So let's start. Because the fact is, and that is kind of my challenge to the doubting souls out there, that this knowledge, and I'm now speaking to those who are followers of the Puranic tradition of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because this channel, Puranic Cosmology, is about, for those of you who don't know, is about that cosmology given in the Puranas, among which the Srimad Bhagavatam is the Mahapurana, the most important, the major one. And part of you could say the one of the topics, or one of the basic topics of the Srimad is cosmology. So therefore I'm saying that, and I'm again making that challenge here all the way through, that this is not astronomy, this is cosmology, and it's much, much deeper and higher and greater than just studying objects in space. And it is much bigger than what is just there in the fifth canto. And I would say this fifth canto, for those of you who know what I mean, it's meant for you, that some immediately go for when they want to understand the cosmology of the Bhagavatam. It's, even that in itself is sorry, but I have to say it, it's a sign of that conditioning, that I heard that in the fifth canto of the Bhagavatam, there's something about planets and so on and so forth, and orbits, and again, one jumps to that conclusion that Puranic cosmology, the Bhagavatam and all the cosmology, then we have to look for science, real science, there the orbits and measurements and all of that. But that is, I'm emphasizing here, not what the Bhagavatam is about, because that is considered more mundane knowledge. And it's there in other Vedic scriptures called Vedangas. So the entire Bhagavatam is about cosmology. You find that cosmology all over the book, and that's what I'm trying to show here. But also trying to show that cosmology, which is a cosmology seen from a completely different point of view. And that's the challenge here also for you, that you have to understand that. And for me, it's a big shift like this of how you look at reality. Not from the out here, that again, modern Western physicalist science does, but from in here, from where we are, from the point of view of consciousness, which the idealist form of science, which you found that the quantum physicists, the founders of quantum physics, more got into if they weren't there all the time. So very interesting part of history there with the advent of quantum physics, which we're also getting into here. So consciousness-centered living cosmos, which, as the Bhagavatam puts it, is best compared to a dream. Yes. So where to start? Well, I guess here, and this is where my presentation, for those of you who didn't see it, this is just the slides from it. The Temple of Vedic Planetarium there in Sridham, Mayapur in India, which I used to work for, and I still work for it, although maybe hardly anyone knows that, because it felt like a mission I got from Sri Radha Madhava there back in 1997. This is how it looks today, more or less. And it is supposed to be filled with exhibitions. It's a planetarium. It's going to show the cosmos to the visitors, and it's huge. And my job back then was to come up with exhibition drafts for the whole thing. But that's a big job. So anyway, and here's the Bhaktivedanta Institute, who were, when I came first time to Mayapur, they gave a presentation there about this cosmology of the Puranic cosmos. This is how the cosmos looks like. And well, I remember it so well, just standing there. It was in a nice little colorful pandal, and they had made these big posters. And they were scientists, respectable scientists with PhD, and they were just telling me that, this is how the cosmos looks like, and you are here. Yeah, here we are. And that's where some of us just click off, and then you walk away. Or you, as I did then, take up the challenge. Because I was convinced already. This was 1980. I'd been 2 years in the Krishna consciousness movement, and I'd been studying Bhagavatam for 2 years. And I was just completely impressed and convinced that this book gives the reality. And then you got this directly from the Bhagavatam. So I thought, let's give it time. Let's just leave it at that, take it on faith, and it's going to be explained in due course. But anyway, here we are, and what to make out of that? Well, my book tells the story how I was then traveling around. I got that service there in 97, basically to figure out what this is all about. That's how I took it, because if we're going to make these enormous exhibitions down there using really high-tech, state-of-the-art Western technology, that's what the leaders there wanted, because that's what impresses people in India. I was a little more on the artistic side there, that let's first of all know what we're going to say, understand this cosmology of the Bhagavata, but then also show it in an artistically beautiful and as low-tech way as possible, easier to maintain. But anyway, what are these exhibitions going to show? Well, I met Richard Thompson, Sadaputta Prabhu. Well, I worked with him then, because I was kind of on that management side and he was the genius. And we were talking about this, because he still had these posters on the wall. And he had now a different... I know now, because he left this world, he has become, it seems to me, a bit of some icon in this group there, as if it's all about understanding what he actually meant. But when we spoke, we sat for hours talking about these topics. He wasn't at all sure of anything. He said, we don't know. But he was sure of one thing, which I also became sure of, and I'm sure of, and has been driven by since then, that we most probably simply need to look at things from a different point of view. Like this picture, for instance. This is how I remember he was speaking like that. Even when we make a map of Earth on a piece of paper, you got this Mercator, or whatever, how you pronounce him, who made his projections for maps. And when they do this, they have to have some system. You can't just squish a round ball onto a flat surface. So even there you find a challenge. And then he said, Sariputta, that what if you want to make a map of the entire cosmos? How would you project it? What kind of system would you have? And maybe this is one of, because he then also introduced me to this book called Hamlet's Mill. And he explained how you find this model very similar in different cultures all over the world. And of course, these here, they look different, but you can see there is something that they have in common. generally some kind of disc there in the middle, a flat horizontal disc, which is always, I would say, symbolizing, representing the earth. In India it's called Bhumandala. And up here, what is it, Midgard, or the middle world where we humans live, basically. And then there is the mid-axis, generally represented by or kind of surrounded by a mountain or a tree or a pillar of some sort. And that one is called Meru in Sanskrit. Here up in Scandinavia, it's Yggdrasil, it's a tree. You got the Olymp in Greece, and so on. And there is this concept in Europe of axis mundi, which is also practically international, that there is an axis, central axis in the cosmos, and so on. And we can look at them, and I was just sitting there looking at those, and what in the world does this mean? And of course it is quite similar to that one of the Puranas, right? So, isn't it? Meru here, and the gods are living here on the top. And then we got the Bhumandala here, and there's often water down here, and it's all in some kind of bubble. Now, again, we tend to, and this is something that, again, I had to kind of clean my slate from the Western conditioned way of thinking, that when we look at one of these models, these paintings or whatever they are, sometimes they are more like symbols. Again, we want to have everything in measurements, in spatial dimensions, in physical space, because that's what we Western minds, I would say, or those influenced by them, are considering as reality, as, yeah, that's where everything is going on. So if you shall find these somewhere, you have to go with a spaceship or something. This is the, of course, grossest version of that way of thinking. But we might think, like some, for instance, they seem to think that this bubble here is out there somewhere in space. So if you would go really far out there somewhere, you will find a shell of the cosmos, which, well, you could puncture if you're not careful with your spaceship, and then the water of the causal ocean will come pouring in here and inundate everything. So careful. Well, I heard that kind of reasoning, and yeah, look here, this is a disc here, and it's flat, Bhumandala flat, so it means that Earth must be flat. I don't know about those who worked with me in the project here, and with Sadaputa and so on, think that the Earth is flat. But when I made my presentation there, that you see in the previous episode here, of course, the question came afterwards: is the Earth flat or round? And I had said, this is not astronomy, don't ask me this question. And of course it came anyway, because we are conditioned to that way of looking at it. We need to get it into the 3D world, because that's the one we have learned is the reality. But the point that I make here, and that is actually made there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is that there are 3 worlds, and that's very interesting also, because you find that all over the place too, in different cultures all over the world. For instance, well, I tell you the story. I was out with the kids. We used to go, when they were small, to Skansen, which is a, very well-known outdoor museum here in Stockholm, which I really recommend you to go to and visit if you're a tourist here. So up there on the hill is this building. It's a Sami Goti hut, which I think it is called Kota in Swedish. Sami home, and the Sami people are the ones living up there north. The original people, in a way, I don't know, all these people came from different places, but up there. And at that time, that day when we walked by there, the door was open and there was smoke coming up from there. And so I went in and sat there on a reindeer skin in front of a Sami woman who, in traditional dress, who was sitting there cooking coffee on an open fire in the middle, completely traditional. And I asked her, what is your view on the cosmos, you Sami people? And she said, I think the first thing she said was there are 3 worlds. Okay, that I heard before. I answered because that's one of those totally basic features that the different models of the cosmos have also between them in common. So, yep. And then she said, the cosmos is alive. Everything in the cosmos is alive. It's a living cosmos. And then again, I connected it to, you find, of course, the same cosmology there in the Bhagavatam, the Puranas, that the whole cosmos is an expansion of God's consciousness and our consciousness as this whole dream unfolds. That is the cosmos, the dream of Mahavishnu. So I was like, wow, this is very interesting. So the 3 worlds, they are, you could say, unless I'm getting into it too fast here, I could maybe end this episode soon. But what I wanted to say with the 3 worlds was that what I gradually, just to tell you everything in a nutshell now, the 3 worlds means that this cosmos that we find in the Puranas and these old cultures, here I found the same thing basically in my own country. And then I realized you go to North and South America, they have tents instead, but even these dwellings, they represent the cosmos. The axis in the middle is that axis mundi, what in India called Meru, the center of the cosmos, and so on. And the upper parts there, to say roof is heaven, and the ground there is earth. So it's all there, and same in different cultures all over the world. You can go to Mongolia, you find the same thing in their tents and so on. So 3 worlds. Now, what are those 3 worlds? I will just end this episode by telling you that you find it there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. You find it in other cultures too, and that's what I found on my journey, that those 3 worlds represent the world that we now are in or perceive ourselves as being in, because our consciousness is right now output or input connected to these senses of this thing here, which is called Stula Sarira in Sanskrit, made of something called Annamaya Kosha, which means made of food, in a world called Burloka, the physical world, which is really called the world of wakefulness. We are awake now, right? Which we call it being awake, but it really means that, our consciousness is now connected to these senses, and therefore we perceive ourselves as being here. But just a few hours ago, I was in another world. We call it a dream world. But then I thought that was reality, and you were also in that world. Everyone is at night or sometime during the day. And then that was reality, and you were busy there, I was busy there, and thinking, well, mostly I think we just forgot this world altogether, right? So now that is another realm called Bhuvarloka, which is the astral, the subtle, the mental realm. And that is also part of this cosmos. So to put it short, in a cosmology based on the idealist outlook, which not only allows for the existence of consciousness as one of the fundamentals of the world, but also that it is actually fundamental, because as a quantum physicist then came up with and understood, the only thing we can say about the world is our perception of it. It's how it exists in our consciousness. So consciousness is fundamental. So if you look at it that way, then it makes perfect sense that, of course, there is a mental realm and there's a physical realm. So, and then there's a realm beyond both of them. And what is that realm? Well, we're getting into that. It's the realm of deep sleep that we experience at night, and that we think that we don't experience because there are no mental or physical forms there. But it's actually said in the Bhagavatam and elsewhere to be a stage closer to enlightenment, actually, and that's why we are rejuvenated when we are in deep sleep. That's how these dream researchers tell us. So, or also those three realms, this one that we call the physical, which you can also call the sensuous realm, it's the one of these physical senses, and the mental realm, it's here at the same time, right? We can just close our eyes and now I'm there in my mental realm. There are thoughts in here, images sometimes, memories. And if you continue, I mean, I used to work as a hypnotherapist. Actually, I'm a certified hypnotherapist. And we worked in there, in the deeper, in that mental realm. But even then, routinely, basically, I mean, as our workplace, dealing with the subconscious realm there. I mean, and I'm surprised. I heard friends tell me that they don't believe that there is a subconscious realm. I mean, even Freud, he was a materialist, I would say. He accepted the existence of the subconscious realm, and the unconscious, as he called it. And I mean, it's just, and I've been sitting working with that as my profession. So that's another one of those challenges I make here, that it makes much more sense to accept a cosmos where there is a mental realm and also a subconscious realm, which in Sanskrit, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is called the Karana level, the Sushupti. Sushupti means deep sleep. And then there's Svapna level, that's where dreams are going on. And then there's, well, it's on the macrocosmic scale, it's Virat, but it's a Jagrat, the awakened realm. This is from the Mandukya Upanishad. We will get into all of these things. But just to round this up for today, these are the three worlds that are found there. So with those clues, you could start actually to figure out a little bit, or at least come up with some kind of interpretation of this. If you think of this, that here, the first world, the Burloka, and then there's Bhuvarloka, and then there's Svargaloka, and so on. And up here we have Satyaloka. So, and they are the gross physical level and the mental astral realm, the subtle realm, where also the devas live and the higher beings, and so on. And up here we have got the Sushupti. Anyway, it's kind of interesting once you get into it, actually. And that's what I'm now also trying to emphasize here at the end of this, to you who's doubted that is this anything important and interesting at all. We are now talking about the cosmology. We're talking about the entire Srimad Bhagavatam and the knowledge of the Bhagavad Purana, which is important, I would like to say. And we're talking not some astronomy and things like that. We're talking the deeper, basic, fundamental worldview that we have. Whoever we are, whatever our interests are, Some of us are interested in science, some are definitely not. But we have a worldview, and the understanding, it's a very practical knowledge we're talking about here, that we all are dealing with the world, and the way we deal with it on every moment of our lives depends on what kind of worldview we have. And then our actions, they build up this entire society and how it looks like on Earth today. And I would like to say that the reason the world looks the way it does today, it's pretty chaotic. I mean, if you don't see that, you better wake up. It's a mess out there. Humans are bewildered right now. Some, I would say those in the Asian side are less bewildered than those here in the global north, as they call it. But why? And I say it's because of materialism, that materialist worldview, that basic assumption that this is just a world of matter and we just act out there. And what do? We make money and we get power and we get this and we get that, and it doesn't matter if we have to steal it from others. Life is short, let's just enjoy while it lasts. And you got this ethics, all these ideas about morality, what is your morality or lack of it. They come from that basic worldview. So I really think that, and this is part of my general mission, you could say, and the mission of this channel, to put it straight, is to challenge that materialistic worldview and update our worldview with one that makes sense. And what this book here is talking about is basically that. It's talking about, and this channel too, it's talking about the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I use as an example, but it's a much bigger thing. It's a cosmology thing. Here we see the Samis, they have their 3 worlds there, which are they even depicting on their drums. It's Sami drums, and we will go on with this. You find it all over the Tower of Babel. It's a kind of an adventure, this. Anyway, thank you so much for being with me, and please subscribe if you like this, and you will also, first of all, inspire me to continue making these episodes regularly. And any little feedback is welcome, and that goes for everyone who's out here producing on YouTube. Share if you like something, and comments below here. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, then let's discuss. I'm used to that and I like it. So, thank you.